indigenous leaders. But as Karen Pauls reports, many are still waiting to hear from the Vatican.
Robert Kakakaway starts every day the same way.
With smudging and praying, returning to my culture.
Kakakaway was just 6 when he was taken from his home and forced to attend the Maryville Indian Residential School, where recently ground-penetrating radar found 751 unmarked graves. He runs an Indigenous counseling service and says news from the Cowessess First Nation will mean trauma for many former students.
There's many survivors that will not today speak about what happened to them in Maryville. A lot of them knew there was unmarked graves, but if they spoke about it, they would get punished.
The school and adjacent cemetery were run by the Catholic Church until the 1970s. Some graves did originally have headstones, but a priest removed them in the 1960s during a dispute with the First Nation. Related documents were moved to Winnipeg.
We just want to get down to the bottom of it.
Richard Gagnon is the president of the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops and the Archbishop of Winnipeg.
The dioceses will pledge and have pledged their willingness to help out any way they can in the process.
Indigenous leaders across Canada say the Pope needs to apologize for what happened in the schools run by the Catholic Church. Gagnon says the Pope has asked forgiveness for historical wrongs done throughout North and South America. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
There are resignation calls for the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations. Carolyn Bennett is accused of perpetuating a stereotype with a text message. Bennett sent a message to independent MP Jody Wilson-Raybould saying that Wilson-Rayboulds' concern over residential schools was really a re-election ploy. Bennett sent a text with a one-word question and a question mark. Pension? Suggesting rather that Wilson-Raybould is more concerned about winning re-election than securing her parliamentary pension as well. Bennett has apologized. The Union of BC Indian Chiefs says an apology is not sufficient because the message is racist and demeaning.
Unfortunately, this has been a tragic night.
This morning, officials in Florida have given an update on the search for survivors in that collapsed condo building near Miami. Daniela Levine Cava is the mayor of Miami-Dade County. She says crews have been working through the night, digging through the rubble. They found 3 more bodies.
We do have 120 people now accounted for, which is very, very good news. But our unaccounted for number has gone up to 159. In addition, we can tragically report the death count is now 4.
Late last night, President Joe Biden declared the situation an emergency. That allows federal funds to be used for rescue operations and to help the victims and their families. Early yesterday, part of the 12-story building collapsed. An investigation is underway to find the cause. 2 far-right organizations are being added to Canada's list of terrorist entities. Minister of Public Safety Bill Blair says the white supremacy group Aryan Strike Force and the anti-government 3 Percenters are being put on the watch list. Blair says the U.S.-based groups have active chapters in Canada.
The Aryan Strike Force, their stated goal is to start a race war and to eradicate ethnic minorities. The 3 Percenters, of the 3 Percenters, they have clearly planned acts of violence, and I think Islamophobic hatred is one of the things that they have targeted, and other racial minorities. And so the ones that we've added today also represent a significant threat to the domestic security of this country.
Blair says the designation can have an immediate chilling effect on the group's ability to organize, similar, he says, to what happened when the Proud Boys group were added to the list in February. An Islamic State group in the Democratic Republic of Congo has also been added. So has American neo-Nazi James Mason. About 2/3 of Canadians have now received at least their first shot of a COVID vaccine. In British Columbia, it's a bit higher, approaching 70%. But there are pockets in the province where the numbers are much lower. In the Northern Peace region, barely half of those eligible have been vaccinated. The CBC's Briar Stewart has more now on how health officials are trying to change that.
At a mall in Fort St. John, BC, people can walk in and receive their first or second shot of the COVID vaccine. And officials are planning more drive-through clinics with longer hours, all in an attempt to make it as easy as possible to get vaccinated. In the Peace region in northeastern BC, the rate of adults with their first dose is between 50 and 55%, substantially lower than the provincial average of 77%. Dr. John Kim is the chief medical officer for the Northern Health Region.
Some people might have some barrier to access, especially in some of our rural communities, and some might have not decided to get the vaccination yet.
In addition to trying to create better access, officials are looking at how to persuade people to get their shot. Stephen Taylor, a clinical psychologist at UBC, says not everyone will be convinced.
The hardcore anti-vaxxers or conspiracy theorists, the harder you try to persuade them, the more they strengthen their arguments.
But he says that group is in the minority. A larger segment would be people who are on the fence.
What will be the biggest thing that will change their mind is time. And that could only be a few weeks or months.
Because he says people may get their shot after they see how effective the vaccine is and that it carries very low risk. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
In England, scientists say they've developed a type of blood test that can detect more than 50 types of cancer, in many cases before symptoms even appear. As Tessa Arcilia reports, they want to begin using it as early as this fall.
It's potentially game-changing and life-saving. More than 50 types of cancer detected by a simple blood test that otherwise would be difficult to diagnose in the early stages, like head and neck, ovarian, pancreatic, and some blood cancers. Scientists from Grail, the U.S. company developing the technology, trialed the new blood test on almost 3,000 people already diagnosed with cancer of varying stages. The latest study showed it correctly identified when cancer was present in more than 50% of cases across all stages of the disease, and wrongly detected cancer less than 1% of the time.
So in one go, you can look at the whole, a large spectrum of cancers.
Dr. Marco Gellinger from the Institute of Cancer Research explains what's behind this medical advancement.
So what enables this is really genetic sequencing technology, because, rather than looking for a specific marker, a single marker in the blood, this looks at all the DNA that is floating around and tries to detect signals coming from potentially many different cancer types.
The National Health Service in England is ready to roll it out to the public for a pilot test as early as this fall. This will include 165,000 participants, with results expected by 2023. Tessa Arcilia, CBC News, London.
Thousands of people filled the streets outside the Bell Centre in Montreal last night, cheering on their team, the Montreal Canadiens. The Habs beat the Las Vegas Golden Knights and are now headed to the Stanley Cup final, the first Canadian team to make it that far since 2011. But the crowds turned unruly. Buildings and cars were damaged, and police used tear gas. CBC's Simon Nakaneshny reports.
A thrilling way to cap off Quebec's national holiday, La Saint-Jean. Thousands of Montrealers flocked downtown to the Bell Centre to watch their beloved Canadiens continue their improbable run all the way to the Stanley Cup final.
Go Gallagher!
They roared when the Habs scored, they booed when Vegas did, and when it ended in overtime, there was a huge wave of joy, a kind of release after a difficult year fighting the pandemic.
Are you worried about your safety in those times?
No, come on. Safety, no, I'm happy, just enjoy. Like they say, life is short, you die to do it tomorrow, it's the same thing, just enjoy.
But after the win, things turned a bit chaotic. Police moved in quickly to disperse the crowd. There were riot squads and lots of tear gas. For a few hours, police chased small groups of people around the downtown core as people in cars honked their horns in celebration. There was some vandalism and arrests, but mostly Montrealers are waking up to the good vibes that come with the chance at Stanley Cup glory. Simon Nakaneshny, CBC News, Montreal.
And that is World Report for this hour.
The only good news it was about the medical advancement, about cancer detection. I think that was only good news. Nothing else had some positive vibes. And I was trying to record one of the morning news here in Vancouver, Canada. And it started with discovery of the children graves, unmarked graves in First Nation territories in near the residential schools. And I have a comment about that. Everyone is waiting for Prime Minister to apologize, waiting for the Pope to apologize, but those guys have nothing to do with those actions. Where this one comes from, this action to forcibly remove the kids from their families, was coming from the old church leadership with the approval of the crown. And it might sound I don't know, I don't have the words to describe it, but some people would say that you should not talk about that, you should not say that, there is no proof. I'm telling you from my life experience, listening news, or probably just life, dealing with people. This type of action that are taken at the national level, or are taking to a country that's being controlled remotely, let's say a crown territory, crown province, whatever it is, or let's say United States have a newly acquired territory or land. Whatever happens in that new territory has to go through the main country leadership. The local governors have a limited power when it's about something big, like trying to change the language and the culture of the local population. So those local governors have some sort of a freedom, but this thing that was connected to the indigenous people, the Catholic Church, has to go through a system, because it's not just removing the kids. They had to have a system in place. They had to build schools for that. So they had to have trained teachers or nuns or whoever did work for those facilities. It was not just simple removal of the children. You had to have a police in place or a personnel in place going around. It had to be organized at the national level. It was not just like someone in British Columbia decided with some bishop and decided to remove the kids and take them into some local school or local church somewhere, trying to teach them English. Then everyone followed. It's not like that. This was done at the same time everywhere at the national level, and doing that, it comes from the leadership, the country leadership, and the country leadership at the time was controlled and connected, and it was reported to the crown, to the queen. So I'm not saying that queen allowed that or queen suggested that, but the queen was aware what was happening in her territory. And of course the queen as a political figure was not aware of the detail, what happened and what is going to happen. Probably she was presented the nice picture of a newly educated generation that are going to be producing and supporting the economy, because it's a big chunk of the Canadian population, these First Nations, and they were thinking, okay, we'll have a healthy, educated population. They are going to contribute, and they are going to have a better lives than living in the poverty and living into their old traditions. So they did not think through the First Nation ways of lives, the genetics. The genetics play a very important role here. How these First Nations are designed, and how are designed to assimilate a new culture, new style, new lifestyle. Some people do. Some people are easy to adapt and model to the new cultures. But like many other cultures, they are designed to fit with their type of food, their type of land, their type of traditions, because it's well tuned. So the DNA on these people is well tuned to the land, well tuned to others, and is done over 1,000 years or longer. And people don't understand that. People think, okay, I can change the black people, bring them to Canada, and they're going to be super happy. I can tell you, they are not super happy. They are just being used here like many other non-local people. And it's tragic to hear that these kids were forced to learn a new language, like English language. I did learn the English language, and I like it. For me, it works. I'm easy to get in tune with stuff, but I'm not one of the regular people. I had to push hard to learn things by myself after moving to Canada. It was not easy at all. But to force kids who grew up in certain family traditions and have certain genetics and family background, to force them within a couple of years to change everything, to change even their ways of thinking, it's too hard, too sudden. And of course, those are little warriors. Lots of those kids are little warriors. They love the freedom. They love to be in the woods. They love to be in their natural habitat. And now they found themselves with restrictions, constricted in some small place, into a world that they don't understand. And they probably rebelled, and they got beaten. They got hit by these nuns who, if you know, in a adult psychology, in a body chemistry, when they have their sexual hormones that control the brains, and when they repress those urges, the body urges, the sexual urges, those people build up tension, stress. So I imagine those nuns who, I'm not saying all the nuns become bitches, but lots of the nuns who are not meant to be part of this type of movement or part of this type of group of people would act with rage, and that reflects in their behavior, that reflects in their attitude towards those kids. So lots of movies depict nuns beating kids. Lots of movies depict nuns that are not very nice, not very pleasant, especially older nuns. And having to do chores, having to teach kids, rebellious kids, that's not an easy job for a nun. Now, there are nuns who are all in love with Jesus, with God or something. Yeah, so when they learn to love, they can control these body urges, they can control the stress. The love is bigger than that. But you get all sorts of people on different groups. So you get bad people, good people who cannot adapt. But it happened that they are in that group. So I'm positive there were nuns who were very rough on those kids, and probably the kids went through some punishment, like a corporal body punishments. Means they were beaten, they were left starved to die as a way of punishing, and as a way of teaching other kids to be obedience pointing to those who are punished. Like the kids had to know what happens if they don't listen, if they don't execute, if they don't apply the rules or whatever. So those were some sort of details I was trying to kind of depict. But what I'm saying, the Queen and the Pope at the time, or probably the Pope had nothing to do with what happened in England, but the Queen and her counselors and whoever was involved in approving such measures in Canada, they were not aware and they never imagined the outcome. They just saw the beautiful image of newly educated First Nation kids who know English, who are going to be part of the generation of the workforce, educated workforce. So they closed the road for me here. But they never saw this outcome. And I don't know if the Queen should apologize for that. I don't know. But it's nothing to do with the Pope or nothing to do with the Prime Minister. Okay, talk to you later. Bye-bye.